Welcome, this is Dr. C. This time we're going to be talking. We're going to talk this time about a subject that I believe is becoming much more relevant in this day and time, in this age. And that is, do you want to live to be 100? Now that may seem like a little bit of a shock to you. I've said all along that I expect to live to be 100 because I am going to outlive my mother, who died at 99, and I take after my mother. Will I live to be 100? I don't know. Let's talk a little bit about it. But before I start, I ran into a great article lately, and I know I'm going to just excuse myself for a moment, and I'm going to just read one paragraph for you, because this is really for Bob Abraham. And you remember Bob Abraham, great guy. He really nailed the leaders of the town of Shrewsbury, and rightly so. Let me explain a little bit about this by reading that paragraph. The paradox of our time in history is that we have taller buildings, but shorter tempers, wider freeways, but narrower viewpoints. We spend more, but have less. We buy more, but enjoy less. We have bigger houses and smaller families, more conveniences, but less time to enjoy it. We have more degrees, but less sense. More knowledge, but less common sense and judgment. More experts, but more problems because of that. More technical medicine, the best in the world, but less wellness. I think that really does say an awful lot. And that came from George Carlin. A lot of people don't remember George Carlin, but he was a comedian, basically, and a very funny one at that. But he did use rough language, I gotta admit that. But there's a lot of stuff in there to ponder, a lot. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, do you want to be 100? Now, what prompted me to look into this type of subject? Well, it was an article, actually, that was published in a journal, Age and Aging. And they talked to people from the ages of about 75 to 90, and they asked them this one question. Do you want to live to be 100? A third of them wanted, a third of them did not want, and a third of them didn't know. Now I guess that's a pretty even breakdown, but let's go into some of the reasons why they said that. First of all, the people who wanted to be 100 lived a very active lifestyle. A very active lifestyle. They didn't let things bother them. They didn't stress out over every little detail. The people who did not want to be 100, just the opposite. They were very pessimistic about life in general. They were couch potatoes. So, the people who were ambivalent were sort of in between. So that prompted me to look into things a little bit. So when I look into things, the first thing we want to do, definitions. Definitions. People who live to be 100 are called centenarians. Well, now there are roughly about 80,000 centenarians in the United States. That's gone up every year. Interestingly, if you look at the number of people in the United States who are 85 or older, they're roughly 5.6 million. Now, there's a big difference between 5.6 million and 80,000. So obviously, there's a pretty significant mortality rate in that age range. So, what are the other definitions that we want to talk about? Well, first of all, there now are Supracentarians, 110 years or older. Roughly, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, 85% of the Supracentarians are women. 15% are men. Even the centenarians, roughly 80% women, 20% men. Now, what is it about that female gene? What's going on here? Well, it's estimated roughly that a part of why people will reach 100 is genetic, because their families, you look at their families, and there's always a number of people in their families who have reached an older age before they pass. It's estimated somewhere between 30 to 40% of the people who reach 100, 30 to 40% is genetic. In other words, they really didn't have a lot to do with it. It was in their genes. But that also means that 60 to 70% of it was due to something they could do something about, something in their environment, something in their diet, something in their lifestyle that could have influenced why they got to be 100. I read a very, very interesting article just recently, written by Daniel Lieberman. Now, Daniel Lieberman is a biologic anthropologist, and he went into some of the reasons why we might live to 100, looking at it from an anthropologic point of view. So, what he said, basically, is that most non-human, but most mammals, once they get over the childbearing years, begin to rapidly deteriorate. They call that the shadow of selection. Once you no longer can reproduce, life doesn't go on too long. That seems to be true of many, many of the animals out there. Many of them. They can't reproduce. They're on their way down. Humans should be different. Humans are different. What are the things then that can expand your life? What are the things scientifically that they can show will help you? Well, he actually went ahead and first of all looked at it from an anthropologic point of view. In other words, went back in history, what may influence age? Well, he called some of the people there hunters-gatherers. What they had to do is they had to actually physically hunt, like the men did, or gather, like the women did. And he looked at a tribe actually still active in Tanzania. What do they do? Well, the older women, the grandmothers, the great-grandmothers, they went out every morning and hiked to go and dig up or pick the food for the day, while the men went out hiking and hunting. And they came back. So it didn't make any difference whether they were grandmothers, great-grandmothers, mothers. They all went out, and they all did what they were supposed to do according to their tribal customs. They lived to a very older age. Nowadays, the life expectancy in the United States for men is 76, 77. For women, it's 81, 82. Okay? You put them all together, and that makes it roughly about 78 plus years that we look forward to. Wow, I'm already beyond what my life expectancy is. Isn't that wonderful? So what are the things that, at least chemically or scientifically, that you can do to improve your ability to reach 100? Well, he went ahead and defined it. Remember, number one, oxygen. You have to have oxygen to live. Goes on to the hemoglobin, goes around the body, goes to all the cells in the body. You need oxygen. But is oxygen always 100% good for you? No. Your body also produces from that oxidation, the influence of oxygen on the chemical reactions in your body, it produces what they call free radicals. And so that's why there's a big market for antioxidants. Not just vitamin C, vitamin E, but other foods that have, quotes, antioxidants in them. Number two, inflammation. Now, inflammation acutely is very good for you because it will fight infections and all. Your immune system produces that whole inflammatory response. But it's that continued inflammation that can gradually deteriorate a lot of the functions in the cells. But our nutritionists came up with anti-inflammatory agents in your diet now. And so people will take antioxidants. People take anti-inflammatory pills. Got a pill for everything. Let me tell you a little bit about taking pills for that. If we take, for example, take steroid pills, yes, acutely it can help. But what does it do to your body? It suppresses your own cortisone. It suppresses it. Suppresses the adrenal glands that produce the cortisol. What if you take thyroid medicine? What does it do? It suppresses your own ability to produce thyroid hormone. What happens when you take an antioxidant or an anti-inflammatory? Does it suppress your own ability to produce natural endogenous antioxidants and anti-inflammatory chemicals in your body? Something to think about. We may not actually be helping ourselves by taking a lot of exogenous, external, anti-inflammatory or antioxidant medication because you're suppressing your own. Okay, what else? We only dealt with two things so far. Well, there's a thing in your cells called mitochondria. Those mitochondria in those cells, that's the energy part. That's the one that produces that ATP, gives you the energy, it boosts your energy. And so anything that would cause a mitochondrial dysfunction, in other words, they're not able to produce as much energy, is not a good thing. So you'll see, I'm sure, nutritionists will come up with things that will, quotes, improve your mitochondrial function. So, as we age, the mitochondrial function actually does go down a little bit anyway. So that's number 3. Number 4, glycation. What that does, you know how you put an apple out for a little while, it gets brown. Put an avocado out, it gets a little brown. So we throw some lemon juice or whatever on it to stop it from browning. Well, that browning effect is called glycation. And what we occasionally will do is to produce compounds that will cause advanced glycation end products, AGE, glycation end products in our body. This helps to promote atherosclerosis, stiffer arteries, wrinkles your skin, hardens your joints, clogs up your kidneys. So those are other things too that will influence earlier aging. Now the real scientists, the ones that use those fancy ultrasonic microscopes and all, they tell you about your DNA. On the tips of the DNA, all the DNA that you have, there are little things that caps, like little caps on the ends. They're called telomeres. And their telomeres shorten as we age. And there are things now that apparently can improve the length of those telomeres. Interesting. The whole point of this particular article, however, besides the scientific stuff, showed that exercise, remember that word, exercise, can improve all of those things without taking anything in. So be active, number one. Be active and exercise. It is the best thing you can do to improve your ability to age to 100. Okay. Now that I've gotten off my bandwagon, let's go on talking a little bit about, do you want to be 100 or not? Well, it's interesting when you talk to people who are 100. And there are focuses of people who live in different areas of the world where the life expectancy is much higher than the rest of the population in that area. There's one area in the United States, in Loma Linda, California. Well, why? Why? Because they're all, not all, but many of them are Seventh-day Adventists. No alcohol, no meat products, exercise regularly. Do you want to live that way? Reminds me of a thing that Woody Allen said many, many years ago. He said, if you want to live to be 100, you got to give up all the things that make you want to live to be 100. Well, when you think about it, yeah, I guess that's probably right, isn't it, huh? And very interesting comments about reaching 100, becoming a centenarian. So what can we do to try, at least? What can we do to influence that 60 to 70% that we can have an influence on? We can't influence our genes. We're born with them. If you got aunts and father and mother, relatives who live to be in their high 90s and maybe even into their hundreds, you've got a great chance of doing it yourself, provided you don't screw it up with that 60 to 70% stuff with your lifestyle, etc. God forbid you should smoke. God forbid you get too fat. So those are the little things that we can do. But let's talk about how do you influence it? What can you do to help yourself reach 100? Well, number one, you need to have good friends. In other words, social interaction is excellent. It reduces stress and improves your ability to reach that goal of 100. Have some good friends. Now, nowadays, we're with the COVID and all, and this is probably a timely thing now, a very timely thing. They're getting into everything, telemedicine, Zoom, etc. Can that substitute for a face-to-face meeting with a friend? Well, they're studying that now. And it'd be a little while before we get some reports and results. But from everything I've looked at, that is telemedicine, whatever, Zoom is not a good substitute for face-to-face contact with a friend. It is not social interaction by any means. So that's number one. Number two, stop smoking if you are. You're a damn fool if you continue. Number three, take a nap. Nothing wrong with taking a nap. That half hour or an hour you take during the day to take a nap actually revitalizes a lot of these chemical reactions in your body. Not a bad thing to do. Number four, do watch what you eat. Now, when I say people don't eat meat or people go onto these strict diets, very few can stay on that diet for a long time. So just be reasonable about what you eat. Don't eat red meat every day. Have a couple of eggs in the morning. Eggs won't hurt you. So just be reasonable. And how can you be reasonable without counting every calorie that you eat? Look at your weight. If you're gaining weight, for God's sakes, cut back on the number of calories. So watch your diet. Number four, marriage. Now, I know that marriages now are going down all the time, percentage-wise. Divorces are going up, percentage-wise, every year. People may choose to be single, which is fine. So, but marriage, the people who have that other partner that they can be with face to face, interact with, talk to them about things, they seem to have a little better longevity than the people who don't. So, drink less alcohol. We know now that even a little alcohol is okay for you. A couple drinks a day, 2 4-ounce glasses of whiskey or all, or 2 8-ounce glasses of wine. That's okay. That's okay. Continue with that, but not to excess. Here, I'm just talking about drinking excess alcohol. Next one, spirituality. Let's talk for a moment. What's the value of spirituality? That is a deep sense of faith in some higher authority. Not Donald Trump. Not Donald Trump, believe me. But spirituality. That will give you a sense of belonging and connection to a larger group of people who worship that higher authority. So, whether you approach this through a religion, through meditation, or through some forms of exercise that include a meditation type of exercise, like yoga, for example, that's also a form of spirituality. It will give you optimism, make you more positive in your life, gives you more of a sense of purpose to your life. That's down on the list as well. A sense of purpose. Have a goal. Every day you should have a goal. You shouldn't wake up and have nothing to do. Just lounge all day long. You need to have a goal for that day. Every day. So it gives you more of a sense of purpose. It teaches you compassion, empathy. It gives you a peace of mind as well. And it gives you that element of forgiveness. You're not carrying grudges all the time. And it gives you a sense of happiness. So those are all advantages of spirituality. What other things? Well, volunteering. Volunteering That helps to build a community. You want to be able to contribute to that community. And so volunteering can do that. It does end an entity called loneliness. I'm going to talk about loneliness the next time we have our discussion, because we're going to talk about other topics, but loneliness, especially in this era of COVID, is an extremely important topic. It increases socialization, volunteering, creates new friends. You develop a stability in your life. It improves your self-esteem. And it leads to what they call graceful aging. Graceful aging. And so, those are the things that you can do to help. That is, with the spirituality and with the aging part. So, what else? Give up grudges, forgive. Take safety seriously. Get enough sleep. You need at least 6 hours of sleep, and I like to get 8 hours myself. Helps you to manage your stress. Remember, continued cortisol coming out all the time is not a good way to manage stress at all. That is going to lead to a younger passing away. If you talk to people who are 100 and ask them, well, give me the secret. Tell me, how did you reach it? Well, there was a nice article, actually, 100 pieces of advice from 100-year-olds. So, remember, there's 80,000 now, and it's going to go up. Of course, you always read about in the paper, well, I had a shot of booze whenever I got up and I went to bed. So, wonderful. That's not the best advice, but, this is what they tell you. Another one said, don't look at the calendar. Just celebrate every day. Well, I guess there's something in that. I make myself go out every day, even if it's just to walk. That is great. Now here, I love this one. Exercise to me is totally unnecessary. I don't walk at all. Wonderful. They still live to be 100, but let me tell you, if you take a whole bunch of people, they're not going to live to be 100. Remember, exercise is the one most important thing to help you to reach that 100. What else? Have a pet. Now, I love pets. I love dogs myself. They give you unconditional love. No question about it. They're great companions. You can talk back to them. They only will give you their love. That's it. They're never going to talk back to you. So, actually, it's good. Make time to cry. Nothing wrong with it. Use your emotions. Let the emotions come out. Don't keep it all in. If you want to cry, cry. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. Don't compare. Don't compare. It always looks greener on the other side. Remember, people who have a lot of money are not happier. Money does not buy happiness, and happiness is part of reaching that goal of 100 years old. Okay, that's basically what I wanted to get across. I was really intrigued at the beginning with that short essay from George Carlin, because it really did say a lot. I love that last statement. More degrees, but less common sense. More knowledge, but less judgment. More experts, but more problems. Doesn't that define our political system? This is Dr. C. We'll see you next time, and have a nice day.